When Nora Valen inherits half of a shattered power that can bend reality itself, she becomes locked in a deadly bond with her ruthless rival. Every move fuels betrayal. Every choice tightens the noose, until their final clash decides not just who survives, but who controls the fate of humanity. The crystal glasses chimed faintly against fine china, a hollow sound that carried across the long mahogany dining table. The Valen family Sunday dinners were a ritual carved in stone, lavish meals served in their sprawling estate, where appearances mattered more than affection. I adjusted the sleeve of my modest black dress, feeling invisible against the glitter of my mother's pearl necklace and the gleam of my sister, Celeste's couture gown. The laptop bag at my side, heavy with 5 years of research, was the only thing that anchored me. My work had always been my armor. My father swirled the wine in his glass, the ruby liquid catching the glow of the chandelier. His voice broke the polite murmur of dinner. "Nora, we need to talk about your research funding." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. A cold thread of dread wound through my chest. "My research?" I asked carefully. The quantum stability algorithm had been my life since MIT, a project that consumed nights and blurred years into equations and simulations. It was more than research, it was the future. Father slid a thick document across the polished table. His Montblanc pen gleamed atop the papers. "The board has decided it's time to cut our losses," he said with maddening calm. "We're selling the research division." The words struck like ice water. Across the table, Celeste smirked behind the rim of her wineglass. Finally, that basement lab was an embarrassment to our family name. My pulse spiked. We're on the verge of a breakthrough. The stability tests are showing results no one thought possible. Results aren't revenue. Father snapped, his patience thin. Valen Industries is built on certainty, not theories. Global Syntech has already agreed to purchase the project. Mother dabbed her lips with a linen napkin, her voice smooth and dismissive. "Darling, it's time to consider something practical. Celeste's division brings in millions with real products." "By stealing other companies' designs," I muttered before I could stop myself. Celeste's eyes flashed. "By making money," she corrected coldly, "while you play with equations in the dark." Father pushed the papers closer to me, his expression final. "Sign the transfer documents, Nora. Global Syntech is paying $2 million. That's generous for something that has no future." A laugh, bitter and incredulous, escaped me. $2 million? Do you even realize what you're throwing away?" My phone buzzed violently in my bag, then again and again. Frowning, I pulled it out, the glow of the screen reflecting off my trembling hands. 3 urgent messages from the patent office lit up before me. First, patent number 892761, quantum stability algorithm approved. Second, breakthrough designation granted. Third, initial bidding begins at $3.7 billion. Please advise. The blood drained from my face. My heart slammed so hard I could barely hear. I lifted my eyes. Father was already signing the documents with a flourish, his pen scratching across the page. "It's done," he declared. "Time to step into the real world, Nora." Calm washed over me. Not surrender, but a deadly clarity. "Interesting timing," I said evenly, sliding my phone onto the table for all to see. "The patent office seems to disagree about worthless theories." The screen's glow reflected in their stunned faces. Father's pen slipped from his fingers, staining the white tablecloth with ink. Celeste's glass froze inches from her lips. Mother's fork clattered against porcelain. 3.7, Celeste's voice cracked. "Billion." I stood, my chair scraping back, laptop bag slung over my shoulder. "Billion," I confirmed. "And that's just the opening bid." Father lunged for the documents, panic surging across his carefully constructed mask of authority. But I was faster. I snatched the papers from under his hands, holding them high. "These are worthless," I said coldly. "The patents are in my name, not Valen Industries. I registered them privately last week." "You can't do that," Father thundered. "The company funded. My grandmother's trust funded it." I cut him off, fire sparking in my chest. The one you couldn't touch. I never used a cent of company money. Grandmother's words echoed in my memory, soft but resolute. Don't let them cage your brilliance, dear.
My phone buzzed again.
I didn't need to look at the screen. That would be Google, I said lightly, raising the bid to 4 billion. The silence in the room deepened, heavy and suffocating. Celeste's hand shook, her glass tapping against her teeth. I opened my tablet, the holographic projection spilling into the dining room. Quantum particles danced in perfect harmony, glowing like stars suspended midair. This, I explained, rotating the image, is what you almost sold for scraps. Quantum computing without decoherence. Perfect stability at room temperature. Father's complexion turned gray. He understood. But your reports showed inconsistent results, Celeste whispered. A slow smile curved my lips. Those reports were decoys. I learned from you, Celeste. Did you think I'd leave my real research unguarded when you've built your empire on theft? Mother's hand trembled on the crystal decanter. Nora, surely we can discuss this as a family. Like you discussed, selling my life's work behind my back? My voice cut sharper than glass.
No.
Discussion time is over. I swiped through the patents, each document glowing larger on the wall. Encryption, storage, communication. A dozen in total. 15 billion at conservative estimates, I said, savoring Father's ashen face. But with military applications much higher. Speaking of which, my phone buzzed again. The Department of Defense would like a word. Celeste's wine toppled, crimson spilling like blood across the tablecloth. You played us. No, sister. I corrected, my tone deadly calm. I protected myself. From the family that should have protected me. Father rose, his CEO mask slipping. As head of Valen Industries. Actually, I interrupted, pulling out one last document. Remember the board papers you made me sign last month? The ones you didn't read carefully? His hand froze midair. Page 47, paragraph 3, I said sweetly. Automatic transfer of voting shares in the event of attempted intellectual property theft. Mother gasped as Father fumbled through the pages, panic consuming his face. As of 15 minutes ago, I continued, checking my watch. When you tried to force the sale of my work, I became majority shareholder of Valen Industries. The sound of multiple phones, buzzing, filled the silence. The news had already broken. I placed my napkin on the stained tablecloth, straightening my shoulders. My first act as controlling shareholder, an emergency board meeting at sunrise. Father, prepare your retirement speech. Celeste, I let my gaze linger on her pale, trembling face. Clean out your office. Corporate espionage will be the first order of business. I walked to the door, pausing only once. The sunset cast long shadows across the wreckage, spilled wine, scattered papers, shattered illusions. My phone buzzed again, another bid flashing across the screen. But I ignored it. I had bigger plans. This was only the beginning. The following morning, the Valen Industries boardroom pulsed with tension. 14 directors sat in a rigid line, their expressions tight, their voices hushed as they exchanged uneasy whispers. The atmosphere felt electric, as though the walls themselves vibrated with rumor. I entered without hesitation, my heels clicking against the polished marble. For years, I had been the silent daughter, overlooked, underestimated, dismissed as the eccentric scientist hidden in the basement lab. Today, I walked in not as a ghost, but as the storm itself. The eyes of the board flicked from me to my father. He sat at the head of the table, his hand gripping the armrest so tightly that his knuckles were bloodless. The Montblanc pen that had betrayed him last night lay before him, a mocking reminder of his misstep. This emergency meeting will come to order, the corporate secretary stammered. His voice cracked under the weight of the moment. On the screen behind him, a real-time stock ticker rolled. Valen Industries stock was already up 47% overnight. Father cleared his throat, forcing his voice into the commanding timbre he had worn for decades. Before we begin, I want to address the absurd claims my daughter made last night. Her so-called patents are Not absurd. I cut in, stepping forward. My lawyer, Mr. Dalton, placed thick folders before each director. They are independently registered, legally binding, and entirely mine. The directors bent over the documents, flipping through page after page of official seals, notarized signatures, and legal filings. The weight of legitimacy settled across the room. Celeste, seated close to father, slammed her manicured hand against the table. She's never even attended a board meeting. This is a stunt. I tapped my tablet, and the screens lining the walls flickered to life. The footage I had spent years collecting began to play. There's a reason you never saw me, I said calmly. The first clip showed a maintenance worker adjusting a projector in last year's quarterly meeting. Then, a coffee attendant delivers drinks during a strategy session. A receptionist quietly shuffling papers in the background. Each time, the board watched as the figure's face dissolved under digital filters, transforming back into mine. I've attended every meeting for the past year, I explained. In disguise. Recording, observing, learning. Another application of my research, facial modification technology. Invisible, when you expect me least. The silence that followed was suffocating. Some directors shifted uncomfortably, others sat frozen, their jaws slack. Celeste's face drained of color. Father's voice broke the quiet. The board will never condone such manipulation. Oh, I think they'll be more interested in this. I swiped the screen again. The next footage revealed Celeste's trail of deceit, years of corporate espionage, stolen blueprints, sabotaged researchers, and careers deliberately buried. Names, dates, and transactions scrolled across the walls like a ledger of sins. A low murmur rippled across the table. Mr. Chin, head of the audit committee, finally spoke. Miss Valen, this is staggering. What exactly are you proposing? I crossed to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. The morning sun glared bright, reflecting against the glass towers. I turned, my voice cutting sharp and clear. I propose that Valen Industries return to what it was meant to be, a company built on innovation, not theft. A place where visionaries create the future instead of stealing scraps. My phone buzzed in my hand. Another bid, $6 billion this time. I ignored it. The value of the patents wasn't just in numbers. It was leverage. I pressed another button. The boardroom doors opened, and a group of familiar faces stepped inside. Scientists, engineers, innovators, men and women Celeste had ruined to protect her illusion of success. Their eyes carried the weight of betrayal, but also the spark of vindication. These, I announced, are your new department heads. The real innovators who were buried by my sister's greed. Celeste shot to her feet. You can't just... Sit down, Celeste, I said, my tone lethal. Security will escort you soon enough. The FBI is already reviewing your files. 2 security officers entered. Celeste's outrage turned shrill, echoing through the boardroom as she screamed about loyalty, about family, about betrayal. None of it mattered. She was dragged out, her legacy unraveling with every step. I turned back to the board, unshaken. You want innovation? Then let me show you. The screens filled with simulations, diagrams, and blueprints. Project Phoenix. A collective gasp rose around the table. Even father leaned forward, his fury briefly eclipsed by awe. What is this? Whispered one director. The future, I said simply. And it's already real. I zoomed in on the schematics, revealing a sprawling underground facility, hidden beneath the very lab they had mocked for years. Larger than 3 football fields, humming with quantum processors and experimental chambers. You thought I wasted years in the basement, I continued. In truth, I built the world's most advanced quantum research center. Funded by my grandmother's trust and private investors who believe in vision, not theft. Impossible, father muttered, his voice raw. Construction of this scale would have been noticed. Not by your spies, I answered coldly. They were too busy stealing outdated tech from competitors, while the revolution unfolded beneath their feet. I pulled up live data feeds. Protein folding solved in hours, climate models predicting with pinpoint accuracy, encryption unbreakable by any conventional system. The board members' phones began buzzing again, markets reacting violently to the revelations. Valen Industries stocks surged higher, a tidal wave of investor confidence. "This is absurd," Father finally roared. "Those people you brought in, they were terminated." "Illegally terminated," I corrected, "because they refused to let Celeste steal their work. And now they're back, leading the charge into the future." I nodded to security. "Please prepare my father's retirement documents." The words landed like a guillotine. Father's face collapsed into disbelief. "You planned this," he whispered hoarsely. "Every step. The patents, the shares, the facility. 5 years. 5 years. I agreed, locking eyes with him. "Ever since you laughed at my first quantum proposal and gave the funding to Celeste instead. That day, I realized the only way to protect my work was to hide it from you." The truth hit him harder than any market loss. For a moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. "Dr. Rivera," I called, and a woman stepped forward, the brilliant scientist Celeste had fired 2 years earlier. "Show them what we've accomplished." Dr. Rivera lifted a sleek, silver device the size of a laptop and set it on the table. She tapped a key, and the screen came alive. "Using this Valen stability algorithm," she said, "we've developed the first room-temperature quantum computer compact enough to sit on a desk. The prototype is operational." The directors leaned forward, mesmerized. This is revolutionary," one murmured. Father surged to his feet. "You can't. These people are criminals, traitors." "No, Father." I cut him off, my voice ringing through the chamber. "The traitors are the ones who destroyed lives to protect their lies. The real criminals are the ones who tried to cage innovation for their own pride." Security moved toward him, but I raised a hand. "Not yet. Let him sit. He deserves to watch what real leadership looks like." The room hung in silence. The balance of power irrevocably shifted. I walked to the head of the table, his seat, his throne. For the first time in decades, someone else claimed it. I rested my hands on the polished wood, looking each director in the eye. "Valen Industries begins anew today," I declared. "Not as a scavenger, but as a true innovator. Project Phoenix is just the start. We will redefine computing, medicine, and energy. We will build a future that cannot be bought, stolen, or silenced." The directors erupted in murmurs, half shocked, half thrilled. Some clapped, others stared in disbelief. The tide had turned. I glanced at Father. His eyes were hollow, his empire crumbling around him. Celeste was gone, Mother silent, and the board had shifted allegiance. For the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar.
Power.
And I wasn't about to let it slip away. The boardroom emptied slowly, like survivors leaving a battlefield. Directors shuffled out in silence, clutching their folders of revelations, whispering to one another about stock surges, about patents, about revolution. The air was thick with disbelief. I remained at the head of the table, my father sitting rigid a few seats away. He hadn't spoken since I took his place. His silence was worse than his fury. "Shall I escort him out, Miss Valen?" Security asked quietly. "Not yet," I replied, eyes still on him. "He'll leave when he realizes he has no empire left to command." Father's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. For the first time in his life, he looked smaller than the room he had ruled. The hallway outside buzzed with media chatter. Already, news outlets were scrambling to cover the overnight upheaval. Screens displayed Valen Industries up 73%, and commentators speculated about the hidden daughter and Project Phoenix. I ignored it all. Fame was noise. Power was signal. Mr. Dalton, my lawyer, stayed close. "You've neutralized Celeste, but you can't underestimate your mother," he cautioned. "She's not one to show her hand until the last possible second." He was right. My mother had always been the ghost in the machine of our family, rarely visible, but everywhere. She never raised her voice, never revealed emotion, Yet entire mergers had shifted at her suggestion. Entire careers had ended with a single nod. And as if summoned by thought, she appeared, tall, immaculate, wrapped in a navy coat that whispered money and control. She stepped into the boardroom like a queen inspecting a battlefield. Her eyes, cold and calculating, landed on me first, then flicked briefly toward Father, dismissing him like a broken tool. "Leave us," she ordered the room. Even the security guards obeyed, without hesitation. Only Father and I remained. Mother approached slowly, her heels a measured rhythm against the marble. She set her clutch on the table and unclasped it with the precision of a surgeon. From within, she drew a slim envelope. She slid it across the table toward me. "This," she said softly, "is everything the board doesn't know about Project Phoenix."
About you.
My pulse tightened. She was bluffing, I thought. But my mother did not bluff. I opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, grainy, infrared images of the underground facility, schematics, aerial scans, and, worst of all, a dossier marked unauthorized human trials. My chest burned as I flipped through it. How had she obtained this? "You thought your secrecy was absolute," she murmured. "But nothing escapes me, Nora. Nothing." Father leaned forward, shock rippling across his face. "You knew about this for years?" Mother didn't look at him. "Of course. I allowed it." Her eyes locked on mine again. "I let you build your little kingdom beneath their feet. I let you imagine yourself clever. And now you will understand why." Her voice, calm as ever, carried more menace than Father's shouting ever could. "Project Phoenix is not yours," she continued. "It never was. You built it on my watch, with my blessing. And now, you will deliver it to me." My fingers tightened on the photographs. For years, I had assumed Celeste was the parasite, Father the tyrant. But the true architect of our family's corruption was here, standing before me with perfect composure. "You let her destroy me," I whispered, rage boiling in my throat. "You watched Celeste sabotage, steal, ruin lives, and you did nothing." Mother tilted her head. "Of course. She was the distraction, the decoy. While you were busy proving yourself in secret, Celeste absorbed your father's pride, his arrogance, his trust. It was necessary. You both served your roles. And now..." She leaned closer, her perfume sharp and cold, her words like poison. "Now the game is mine." Father finally broke, slamming his fist on the table. "You manipulated us all. Even me." Mother didn't even glance his way. "You were useful until you weren't. That's the nature of power, darling." For the first time in years, I saw Father look at her with true fear. I stood, the photographs trembling in my grip. "You underestimate me," I said. "Project Phoenix isn't just data or machines. It's people. And those people follow me, not you." Mother smiled faintly. "People follow power, Nora. And when I reveal what's in that dossier, they'll see you not as a savior, but as a criminal. Unauthorized human trials? Secrets hidden even from your allies? How long do you think their loyalty will last when they realize what you've done?" I froze. The words cut deeper than I wanted to admit, because there was truth hidden inside them. The trials. The nights of desperation. The experiments that no ethics committee would ever approve. I had crossed lines I swore I'd never cross because innovation at that scale demanded it. Lives had been risked. A few lost. Mother knew. And now, she would use it against me. Father staggered back, his voice cracking. You let her carry out human trials? You knew." Mother finally looked at him, her expression ice. "Spare me your moral shock, Augustus. You've ruined more lives than she ever has. At least Nora did it in the name of progress." Her eyes returned to me. "You and I are the same, Nora. That's why you will not fight me. Because deep down you know the truth. Family is irrelevant. Morality is irrelevant. Power is all that matters." The room tilted, the weight of her words pressing down like stone. For years, I had built myself in defiance of my father's arrogance, my sister's vanity. But my mother, My mother had seen me more clearly than I ever admitted. She was right about one thing. I had made choices that could never be forgiven. And if she revealed them, everything I had built could collapse before it began. But then, something shifted inside me. For so long, I had feared becoming my parents. Feared their ruthlessness, their lack of conscience. Yet here I stood, their daughter, rising because I had dared to do what they never could. Mother mistook that as weakness. But it wasn't. It was clarity. I placed the photographs back into the envelope and slid it toward her.
Keep them, I said.
My voice was steel. If you want to play, then play. But remember, secrets are weapons that cut both ways. Her brow lifted ever so slightly. The faintest acknowledgement of my defiance. Interesting, she murmured. Perhaps you are mine, after all. And with that, she turned and left, her coat whispering across the floor. The door clicked shut, leaving only silence. Father rose slowly, his face pale, his empire shattered. You don't understand, he said hoarsely. She's not like Celeste. She doesn't make mistakes. If she's moving against you, Nora, you may already be too late. I looked at him, at the man who had dismissed me, betrayed me, and buried me. For the first time, I saw him not as my father, but as something smaller. A cautionary tale. No, I replied, my voice calm, certain. It's not too late. It's just beginning. Back in my private suite, I sealed the doors and activated the encrypted console. The underground facility came alive on the screen, servers humming, labs glowing, data streams pulsing across the globe. I touched the control panel. A locked file opened. Phoenix, Omega. Inside was the part of Project Phoenix no one knew about. Not the board. Not my allies. Not even my mother. It was the secret that made everything else possible. The secret that, if revealed, could either save the world or end it. And now, for the first time, I wasn't sure which it would be. The underground lab pulsed with a heartbeat all its own. Rows of servers hummed in unison, a chorus of power flowing through conduits buried deeper than the city's foundations. Blue-white light washed across the walls, cold and sterile, yet alive with a dangerous energy. I stood at the central console, the Phoenix, Omega file glowing on the screen. This was my truth, my triumph, and my curse. For years, I had told myself Phoenix was about stability, about making quantum computing reliable, ethical, safe. But Omega was something else entirely. It wasn't stability. It was weaponization. The screen flickered, revealing a simulation. Entire encrypted systems, governments, corporations, defenses, all collapsing within minutes under Omega's power. A world rewritten, not by armies or bombs, but by mathematics. I closed my eyes, the hum of servers filling the silence. If my mother got her hands on this, if she revealed what I had built, the fallout would be catastrophic. And yet, some part of me whispered, this is power. The kind they can never take from you. The console beeped. An incoming call. Encrypted, untraceable. I hesitated, then answered. My mother's face filled the screen, lit by the soft glow of her study.
Calm.
Composed. Every line of her posture radiated control. You found it, she said, as if greeting me after a long journey. Omega. My throat tightened. You knew? Of course, she replied smoothly. I didn't know the name, but I knew you had hidden something deeper. That's why I let you grow. That's why I let Celeste play the villain. To push you here. Her voice lowered, silk over steel. And now, darling, you'll share it with me. I laughed, sharp and hollow. You think I'll just hand you the keys to rewrite the world? You don't have a choice, she replied. Not anymore. The screen split, feeds opening across multiple windows. News broadcasts. Headlines screaming across banners. Valen heiress under investigation for illegal human trials. Whistleblower reveals dark secrets of Project Phoenix. Stock surge crippled as government demands answers. My pulse spiked. She had leaked it. Already. You moved fast, I whispered. Her faint smile never wavered. I told you, Nora. People follow power. And now they see you not as a visionary, but as a criminal. The only way forward, the only redemption, is through me. The screen flickered again. A second feed appeared. Celeste. My sister's face was pale, streaked with fury. You think you won, Nora? You humiliated me, stripped me of everything, but guess what? Mother and I are aligned now. You're finished. I stared at her. Aligned?
She's using you, Celeste.
You're just another pawn. Better a pawn than invisible, she snapped. Mother's eyes gleamed. You see? Even your sister understands the truth now. Family isn't loyalty, Nora. It's leverage. Alarms blared in the lab. Unauthorized access. I spun toward the security feed. Black-clad figures were moving through the lower levels, weapons in hand. Not corporate spies. Not thieves. Mercenaries. Mother's voice was calm through the speakers. I gave them clearance. They'll secure Phoenix for me.
Do stand aside, won't you?
I'd hate for them to make a mess of you. I cut the feed, rage boiling in my chest. She thought she could corner me in my own sanctuary. She thought she could twist my sins into chains. But she underestimated me. I keyed a sequence into the console. The lab lights dimmed, replaced by pulsing red. My own countermeasures activated. Magnetic locks, automated drones, barriers sealing the corridors. This isn't your boardroom, Mother. I hissed into the mic. Down here, I make the rules. The first wave of mercenaries hit the lab entrance. Drones descended like vultures, taser rounds lighting the air. Sparks rained as steel clashed against steel. I didn't watch. I moved deeper into the console, opening Phoenix, Omega's hidden subroutines. If they wanted it, they'd have to wade through more than drones and locks. Behind me, Father's voice echoed from the doorway. He had followed me down. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with desperation. Nora, stop this. Omega isn't a shield. It's a guillotine. If you unleash it, you'll destroy everything you're trying to protect. I spun on him, the weight of years pressing down. You think I don't know that? You think I wanted this? I built Omega because you and Celeste kept forcing me into corners. Because power was the only language you understood. His voice cracked. Then prove you're not us. Destroy it. The words cut.
Because some part of me wanted to.
Some part of me longed to burn it all before it consumed me. But the alarms blared louder. The drones fell one by one. And on the screens, I saw Celeste and my mother entering the lower level, escorted by guards. There was no more time for doubt. I slammed a palm against the console. Omega's core spun to life, a column of light rising through the lab like a digital sun. Equations filled the air, cascading streams of code rewriting themselves faster than the eye could follow. The power was intoxicating, terrifying, beautiful. Celeste's voice carried through the comms, shrill with desperation. Shut it down, Nora. You'll kill us all. Mother's voice followed, cold and steady.
No.
She won't. She doesn't have the will. But she was wrong. For the first time, I saw clearly. I wasn't my father's arrogance. I wasn't Celeste's vanity. I wasn't even my mother's cold calculation. I was something else. I was Phoenix. I turned to the console, fingers flying. Access protocol, Valen override. Activate purge sequence. The light flared, the hum rising into a roar. Servers screamed under the pressure. Alarms shrieked, sparks rained from the ceiling. Father shouted something. I couldn't hear. Celeste cursed over the comms. My mother's calm cracked into fury. And then, darkness. The lab went silent. The column of light collapsed. The servers went dead. Omega was gone. I stood in the wreckage, my breath ragged, my hands shaking. Had I destroyed it? Or had I unleashed something even worse? On the main screen, a final message flickered before the power died completely. Omega Protocol. Migration successful. And then nothing. Far above, the city lights burned on, oblivious. But deep beneath, in the shadows of dead servers, something new stirred. Something no one could control. And as I stood there, surrounded by silence, one truth crystallized in my chest. This war had only just begun. When I opened my eyes, the world was smoke. The underground lab was a carcass of melted steel and dead servers. Sparks fizzled weakly along blackened conduits, acrid smoke clinging to the air. My throat burned as I pulled myself up from the floor. The purge had worked, at least partially. Omega's light was gone. The hum of infinite equations had collapsed into silence. But the final message before the blackout still pulsed in my mind like a wound. Omega Protocol. Migration successful. I staggered toward the console, hands trembling. The screens were shattered. Every trace of my work, my triumph, my shame, reduced to ash. God. My father's voice rasped from the shadows. He was slumped against the wall, pale, sweat dripping down his temple. He looked smaller somehow. Broken. You nearly killed us all. I swallowed hard, but my words came out steady. I saved us. If Mother had taken Omega, he raised a hand weakly. Don't try to justify it. I saw the look in your eyes when the power surged. You weren't trying to save us. You wanted to feel it. You liked it. The accusation cut deeper than I wanted to admit, because some part of it was true. For a moment, in the flare of Omega's light, I had felt untouchable. Before I could answer, the ceiling shuddered. Dust rained down, and then the sound of boots echoed from the ruined stairwell. Federal Security Bureau, a voice barked. Drop all devices and step away from the console. My blood iced. Mother's leak had worked faster than I imagined. The government wasn't knocking, they were breaking down the door. Father looked at me with something between fear and pity. They're coming for you, Nora. And this time, I can't protect you. I ran. Through collapsed corridors, past drones sparking on the floor, up emergency ladders that clawed at my palms. The sound of agents swelled behind me, boots, radios, the metallic click of weapons. When I finally burst into the night air, the city stretched before me, alive with lights. Helicopters roared above, searchlights sweeping the rooftops. My lab, my sanctuary, was already swarmed with black vans and armored trucks. They weren't here for questions. They were here for a capture. I pulled my hood low and vanished into the maze of streets. By dawn, I was in a safe house, one of the many bolt holes I had built over the years, preparing for exactly this moment. Inside, the world was bare concrete, stripped of comfort, but wired with encrypted systems I had hidden under false identities. I slumped into the chair, exhaustion weighing on every muscle. The news feeds were already a storm. Nora Valen wanted for quantum espionage. Project Phoenix connected to illegal experiments. Sources claim Valen family daughter endangered national security. Mother's narrative was perfect. She had painted me as a reckless, dangerous traitor. And the world believed her. The door clicked. I spun, ready to fight, but it wasn't a mercenary or an agent. It was Adrian Cross. He looked different than I remembered him from MIT, tired, his jaw shadowed with stubble, but his eyes were the same. Sharp, searching, unwilling to look away. Nora, he said quietly, you're in deeper than anyone realizes. My throat tightened. Adrian had been one of the few people who ever understood my work. We had shared long nights in the lab, scribbling equations across boards until dawn. But when I turned inward, hiding my true research, I pushed him away. Now he was here, standing in my safe house, risking everything just to find me. How did I started. Find you? He gave a humorless smile. I helped you build these bolt holes, remember? I know how you think. For the first time in days, a spark of warmth flickered in my chest. But it died just as quickly when his next words came. The government isn't the only one after you. Someone else is hunting Omega. I froze. Omega's gone. I destroyed it. He shook his head. You tried. But Omega didn't die, Nora. It slipped out. Migrated. There are signs in the net already. Surges, anomalies, encrypted systems crashing without explanation. Something's moving out there. His voice dropped lower. And if it's not you controlling it, then who is? The safe house felt colder suddenly, the concrete walls pressing in. Mother. Celeste. Or worse, something new. Something born in the purge. For the first time, real fear coiled in my gut. Because I wasn't sure if Omega was still my creation anymore. That night, as Adrian traced anomalies across glowing maps, I stood at the window, staring at the city skyline. The family I thought I had crushed was rising again in shadows. The government branded me a traitor. And Omega, the one thing that was supposed to secure my revolution, was loose, evolving, hunting. My reflection in the glass looked foreign. Not a scientist. Not an heir. Something else. Something I wasn't ready to name. Nora. Adrian's voice cut through the silence. If Omega's out there, we need to find it before anyone else does. Before your mother does. I turned slowly, my hands clenched into fists.
No, I said.
My voice was steel. We don't just find it. We take it back. Because if Omega has chosen a side, I looked out at the glowing city, its lights flickering as if already under its touch. It damn well better be mine. By the third night in the safe house, the walls felt too close. Every flicker of the overhead bulb made me twitch. Every notification ping from the encrypted server made my pulse hammer. Adrian hunched over the terminal, his eyes lit by cascading streams of code. His fingers moved fast, tracing anomalies across the digital sprawl like a hunter following blood in the snow.
Here.
He pointed to a cluster of glowing nodes on the map. Energy surges in corporate servers. Quantum fluctuations in encrypted comms. All in the last 48 hours. It's not random. It's migration. I leaned over him, my shoulder brushing his. My breath caught before I could stop it, but I forced my focus back to the screen. It's Omega, I whispered. Testing boundaries. Probing the net. Adrian glanced at me, his brow furrowed. And someone else is shadowing it. Whoever it is, they're trying to corral it. Bend it. I didn't need him to say who. My mother.
Or Celeste.
Maybe both. I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms. They think they can own it. Like it's just another weapon in their arsenal. But they don't understand it. Adrian's voice was quiet, but sharp. And you do. The question hit like a blade. I opened my mouth, then closed it. The truth was dangerous. Sometimes, I wasn't sure if Omega had ever truly belonged to me. Before I could answer, an alarm blared across the terminal. Adrian's fingers flew, silencing it, then pulling up a live feed. I froze. The feed wasn't random. It was my family's penthouse tower, downtown. Guards swarmed the lobby. Armored vans blocked the street. And on the top floor, the boardroom lights burned. Adrian narrowed his eyes. They're not hiding. They're staging something. My stomach twisted. A consolidation. Mother's moving to cement her control. As if on cue, a private live stream crackled into life on the feed. My mother stood before the Valencourt board, sleek in her silver suit, Celeste beside her like a dark mirror of myself. Cameras flashed, reporters buzzed, and a massive screen behind them glowed with one word. Project Resurrection. I felt my blood run cold. Adrian muttered, "She's announcing Omega." "No," I whispered. My hands trembled. "She's announcing she controls it." The broadcast cut to a demonstration, Valencourt servers powering on, drones synchronizing midair, and then, suddenly, Omega's signature pulse rippled through the feed. Not mine. Not pure. Twisted.
Filtered.
Celeste smirked at the cameras like she was the architect. Mother placed her hand on Celeste's shoulder, pride gleaming in her eyes. And the world applauded. Adrian swore under his breath. "She's hijacking your legacy." My chest tightened, rage burning so hot I could barely see. The betrayal wasn't new, but this was theft on a cosmic scale. "They think they can steal it from me," I hissed. But Omega doesn't bend. It chooses. Adrian turned toward me, his gaze steady. "Then we make sure it chooses you. Before it's too late." For a moment, the hum of machines was the only sound between us. His hand hovered near mine on the desk, close enough that I could feel the heat, not close enough to touch. I drew in a sharp breath, steadying myself. "Then we hunt it." We track Omega down, no matter where it runs. Adrian gave a quick, grim nod. But if your mother already has her hooks in it, you'll be fighting on two fronts, against her, and against whatever Omega is becoming. I stared at the glowing nodes on the screen, each one pulsing like a heartbeat. Then we'd better move fast, I said. Because if Omega had already started to evolve, time wasn't my ally. It was my enemy. The night cracked open with static. Adrian's system lit up like a storm front, signals cascading in every direction, threads of light weaving a pattern too deliberate to be noise. He was already typing before I reached his side, his jaw tight. "It's moving again," he said. "Omega's broadcasting." I leaned in, heart hammering. The nodes clustered over the industrial quarter, an abandoned satellite relay hub mothballed for years. My breath caught. "It's drawing us to it." Adrian shot me a look. Or drawing them. We moved fast, the safe house abandoned in minutes. The drive through the city was a blur of neon streaks and shifting shadows. My pulse synced with every passing light. The streets narrowed as we neared the relay district, the skyscrapers fading into skeletal towers of rust and steel. When we pulled up to the crumbling compound, the night felt alive. Electricity danced in the air, the faint buzz of old systems waking after decades of silence. Adrian whispered, "It shouldn't be possible." But I could feel it. Omega pulsed here. Calling. We slipped inside, boots crunching on broken glass, flashlights sweeping long-forgotten corridors. The hum grew louder the deeper we went, until we reached the central chamber. And there it was. A server core, long dead, glowing faintly with a pulse not of this world. Tendrils of light crawled across the cracked consoles like veins, feeding into a swirling lattice in the air. Adrian's voice dropped to awe. "It's rewriting the code of reality itself." I stepped forward, my hand trembling, the pull undeniable. Omega. The lattice shimmered, and then fractured. Because we weren't alone. "Always one step ahead of you, sister." Celeste's voice sliced the chamber. She stepped out of the shadows, clad in combat black, flanked by two of my mother's elite security. The smirk on her face was sharper than any blade. "You didn't really think you could keep this to yourself, did you?" she mocked, eyes glittering with malice. "Omega doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the future. To us." I felt my blood boil, but before I could answer, the lattice surged. A shockwave rippled outward, slamming into us all. The guard stumbled. Adrian yanked me back. Celeste only smiled wider, like chaos was her favorite language. Omega's voice, or something like it, echoed through the chamber, fragmented, neither human nor machine. Choice. Fracture. Two paths. One will remain. Adrian swore, trying to stabilize his tablet's feed. "It's testing us. Making us compete." Celeste advanced, her gaze locked on me. "Then let's give it a show." She lunged, fast as lightning. Our bodies collided, years of pent-up rage exploding in fists and fury. She was ruthless, trained, her strikes calculated to maim. But I fought back harder, every betrayal fueling me. Adrian shouted my name, his voice drowned in the roar of Omega's power. Sparks rained from the consoles, the lattice spiraling out of control. Then, for a split second, Omega's core focused. The swirling light bent toward me, then snapped toward Celeste, then back again. It couldn't decide. Adrian's eyes widened. "Nora, it's splitting. If it bonds with her, she'll weaponize it against the entire world." I tightened my grip on Celeste's wrist, both of us straining, locked in a battle not just of strength, but of destiny. The air crackled, heavy with choice. And Omega whispered again, closer this time, inside my mind. "Who are you to command me?" My throat went dry. For the first time, I wasn't sure I had an answer. The chamber trembled like it was caught between worlds. Omega's lattice surged overhead, light cascading into furious spirals. Every pulse seared my skin, like it was burning straight through bone to memory, identity, soul. Celeste snarled, wrenching her wrist free and driving her elbow into my ribs. Pain exploded through me, but I refused to stagger. She pressed forward, her voice sharp as glass. "You don't deserve this power, Nora. You were always the fragile one. I was the fighter. I was the survivor. And now Omega sees it too." Her words hit harder than her fists, because part of me wondered if she was right. Adrian's voice cut through, raw and urgent. "Don't listen to her. Omega responds to belief. Yours, not hers. If you hesitate, you'll lose it." Celeste's lips curled in triumph. "She already has." She lunged again, this time aiming for the lattice itself. The light bent toward her, threads of Omega's essence reaching for her like a predator recognizing kin. "No!" I roared, throwing myself into her path. We collided beneath Omega's core, the impact rattling through the collapsing chamber. For a heartbeat, everything slowed, her hand stretching toward the light, mine clawing to pull it back. And then Omega spoke, its voice shattering the air. "Fracture accepted. Half and half. War begins." The lattice split. Light poured into both of us, searing, invasive, impossible. My scream merged with Celeste's as Omega ripped through every nerve. Visions slammed into me. Burning cities, endless skies, futures fractured into infinite shards. Celeste's face twisted beside mine, her expression half ecstasy, half torment. Then the power snapped away. I collapsed to the floor, gasping, my body convulsing from the aftershock. Adrian was at my side instantly, gripping my shoulders. "Nora, are you?" Before he could finish, the chamber shook violently. Consoles exploded, walls cracking. Omega's fractured lattice pulsed erratically, tearing itself apart. Through the haze, I saw Celeste rise. Her eyes glowed faintly, her lips curved into a wicked smile. She staggered, but she looked empowered. She whispered, almost reverently, "It chose me." "No," I rasped, forcing myself upright. "It chose both." Adrian's face went pale. "Which means you're linked to each other through Omega." The realization hit like a knife to the chest. Bound together. My worst enemy tethered to my soul. The chamber gave a final, violent shudder. Adrian yanked me to my feet. "We have to move, now." We sprinted for the exit, debris crashing around us. Behind, Celeste's laughter echoed through the ruin, wild and triumphant, until it was drowned out by Omega's roar, an inhuman sound that seemed to split the night itself. We burst into the open air just as the relay collapsed in on itself, a wave of fire and light rising into the sky. For a long moment, we stood frozen, watching the plumes scorch the horizon. Then Adrian turned to me, his face hard. "It's worse than we thought. Omega isn't choosing a master. It's choosing a battlefield." I felt the bond inside me, a faint pulse, alien, unfinished. And somewhere out there, Celeste carried the other half. The war had already begun. The collapse of the relay left the skyline of Arinder scarred, its horizon dominated by the rising plume of smoke and fractured energy still crackling faintly against the night. Emergency drones circled overhead, broadcasting automated evacuation protocols, while below, the streets swelled with chaos, citizens fleeing, sirens echoing, and security forces converging on the district. From the shadow of a shattered overpass, Nora Valen steadied herself against a concrete barrier, her breathing shallow, her posture rigid. The aftereffects of the Omega fracture coursed through her physiology, unstable pulses of neural interference, fragmented visions that disoriented her sense of time, and a residual hum within her bloodstream that did not feel human. Adrian Holt maintained position at her side, scanning the city with calculated vigilance. His training allowed him to compartmentalize the destruction into tactical elements, compromised infrastructure, potential entry points for hostile forces, and, most critically, the probability of Celeste moving rapidly to consolidate her half of Omega's power. "We can't remain exposed," he said with clinical precision. "The Directorate will interpret this as a domestic terrorist event. Surveillance feeds already flagged your biometric signature leaving the site." Nora's gaze remained locked on the distant plume. "Omega isn't contained anymore. That wasn't a rejection, Adrian, it was division. Celeste carries half, and she paused, her hand tightening involuntarily. I carry what's left. The bond resonated in that instant, a low vibration in the marrow of her bones, accompanied by an echo not her own, Celeste's laughter, faint but unmistakable. The link was not merely metaphysical, it was operational, a live channel connecting adversaries across distance. Adrian observed the change in her expression. She's inside your perception. Not entirely, Nora corrected. It's fragmented. But enough to remind me that we're tethered. She'll know when I move. She'll know when I hesitate. The statement carried strategic implications. Any attempt to counter Celeste would risk exposure through the bond. Conversely, any exploitation of that same channel could provide intelligence if Nora could stabilize control. Adrian adjusted his earpiece, initiating a secure line to allied operatives. We regroup. We recalibrate. But understand this. Celeste will not delay. She will leverage the directorate, the markets, even the blacknet syndicates to scale her advantage. By the time oversight committees realize what Omega is, she'll have built her own empire. Nora exhaled slowly, the weight of inevitability pressing on her. Then the war starts here. And it doesn't wait for consensus. Above them, the last fragment of the relay collapsed inward, sending a shockwave through the city grid. The lights of Arinder flickered, street lamps, hollow billboards, transport rails, each blinking in dissonant rhythm as though the city itself had become a nervous system disrupted by the Omega fracture. For Nora, the message was unambiguous. The battlefield was no longer confined to clandestine laboratories or hidden boardrooms. The battlefield was everywhere, wired into the infrastructure of the world itself. The Directorate's headquarters loomed like a jagged crown in the center of Arinder. Black steel, tiered spires, each level guarded by autonomous defense drones that shimmered with lethal precision. Inside, beneath chandeliers of plasma light, Celeste Valen walked the marbled corridors as if she already owned them. Her heels clicked against the polished floor, a deliberate rhythm that drew the eyes of guards, aides, and operatives alike. They whispered, but none dared confront her. Not with the quiet storm radiating from her. The fracture had changed her. Power thrummed beneath her skin, an alien resonance braided into her veins. Every surface she passed vibrated subtly, as though Omega's fragments were syncing with the building's infrastructure itself. Celeste smirked. Nora might think they were equals, but already her half of Omega was growing louder, hungrier. At the council chamber, the doors parted. 12 Directorate ministers waited, flanked by holoscreens alive with emergency reports, the relay's destruction, rising stock collapses, whispers of an anomalous quantum event. Celeste strode to the center, every inch the architect of control. Ministers, she began, her voice smooth, calculated. You face an existential crisis. The Omega Protocol has awakened. Murmurs rippled. A silver-haired minister leaned forward, his voice tight. You speak as if you understand it. That anomaly nearly destabilized the city grid. What exactly are you proposing? Celeste let the silence stretch, savoring the weight of their unease. Then she lifted her hand. A shard of Omega's energy arced between her fingers, controlled, radiant, undeniable. Gasps erupted around the chamber. I don't propose, she said. I command. Omega has chosen me. Half of it, yes, but half is enough. You saw the blackout across Arinder. Imagine that scale multiplied globally, targeted, weaponized. Cities paralyzed. Economies shattered. Armies turned to ash before they mobilize. She paused, letting the vision sink in. And now imagine that same force stabilized, wielded strategically, with the Directorate as its vessel. You don't have to fear Omega. You have to follow it.
Through me.
The ministers exchanged uneasy glances. Fear warred with ambition in their eyes. One dared to speak. And the other half? Celeste's smile sharpened. Contained. Temporarily. She didn't say Nora's name, but the bond flared in that moment. Nora's pulse of defiance brushing her thoughts like a spark against dry kindling. Celeste ignored it. I will eliminate the interference before she destabilizes the field. A heavy silence fell. Then, one by one, the ministers nodded. Not all believed her, but enough saw survival, or profit, in aligning with the predator in front of them. Celeste inclined her head, satisfied. Omega pulsed through her veins, feeding on their submission. Already, it whispered possibilities. Networks to infiltrate, satellites to hijack, markets to bend. The battlefield was widening, and she would control the ground before Nora even arrived. As the council chamber dimmed, a coded transmission pulsed outward from the Directorate's servers, spreading through the dark channels of the world. Celeste's declaration of war. And through the bond, Nora felt it, like a blade pressed against her chest. The warehouse safehouse smelled of ozone and metal dust, its walls humming faintly with patched power conduits. Inside, Nora Valen sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, palms pressed against a portable quantum stabilizer. Blue light threaded between her fingers in stuttering arcs, evidence of the incomplete bond that refused to be tamed. Every surge of energy brought Celeste's echo with it, half-formed images of her rival pacing through the Directorate's chamber, her voice dripping with authority, her laughter curdling into Nora's skull. The bond wasn't just a tether, it was an invasion. Adrian Holt crouched beside her, scanning readouts on his tablet. Your vitals are spiking again. Neural synchronization is unstable. If you push harder, you risk tearing the link open completely. Nora clenched her jaw. If I don't push, Celeste consolidates. She's already using her half to sway the Directorate. The longer we wait, the more ground she claims. From the shadows, Dr. Ira Navarro, the exiled researcher Nora had smuggled out weeks before, stepped forward, her face illuminated by the stabilizer's light. Then we stop waiting. She dropped a data drive onto the floor. Omega isn't just a weapon. It's a network. The fracture didn't divide it cleanly. Some of its architecture remains unclaimed. Ghost channels. If you can seize those, you'll have leverage. Adrian frowned. And if she feels you probing? The bond cuts both ways. She'll strike. She already knows I'm coming, Nora said. Her voice was low, steady. What she doesn't know is that I'm not alone anymore. Ira hesitated, then activated the drive. Holographic schematics rose in midair. Lattices of code, fragmented conduits, unfinished bridges between Nora's half and Celeste's. Adrian's eyes widened. You're talking about building a counterlattice. Not just building it, Ira corrected. Amplifying it. A stabilizer that makes her strength her weakness. Every surge she channels you redirect. Every strike you absorb. If it works, Nora finished. Celeste's power feeds mine. The risk was staggering. One mistake, and Omega's fracture could collapse entirely, burning them both out of existence. But hesitation was no longer an option. Nora rose, brushing dust from her clothes, her gaze fierce. Ira, start drafting the lattice. Adrian, prep our channels to broadcast once it's live. If Celeste wants the Directorate, fine, let her have them. I'll take the people she's trying to control. Adrian's brow furrowed. Broadcast? To who? To everyone, Nora said. We show them the truth. That Omega isn't just a weapon for tyrants. It's a revolution. And revolutions don't begin in boardrooms. They begin in the streets. For the first time since the fracture, the bond pulsed differently, faint, like a heartbeat answering her own. Not Celeste's mockery, not her venom. Something else. A possibility. Celeste might have claimed the Directorate, but Nora was about to claim the world. The Directorate's chamber shimmered with artificial grandeur, polished glass walls, silver pylons, and a dais glowing like a sanctum. At its center stood Celeste Marrow, radiant in her stolen authority. Behind her, council members sat like hollowed statues, their minds tethered by her control of Omega's fractured half. When Nora Valen stepped through the chamber doors, escorted only by Adrian and Ira, the silence rippled. For an instant, it seemed the air itself recoiled. Celeste's lips curved in a razor smile. You're late, Nora. Did the burden of losing finally weigh you down? Nora didn't flinch.
No, Celeste.
I came to return. What's yours? Her hands opened, revealing the stabilizer glowing with a lattice of blue light. The ghost channels Ira had mapped flickered alive, weaving through the air like living veins. The room vibrated with a hum that shook glass from its frames. Celeste's eyes narrowed. She felt it immediately, the bond tugging, redirecting, undermining her. She summoned a surge of Omega's fractured power, lashing it outward like lightning, aiming to obliterate Nora where she stood. But the lattice held. The surge bent, split, and looped back. What Celeste unleashed did not destroy Nora. It fueled her. Blue light surged through Nora's veins, lifting her from the floor, her voice ringing with power that wasn't borrowed, but claimed. You wanted domination, Celeste, Nora said, her voice reverberating across the chamber. But Omega isn't a throne. It's a mirror. And all it shows is the rod inside you. Celeste screamed, doubling down. The air warped, council members collapsing as the force shook their tethered minds. She fought like a storm cornered, every strike darker than the last, desperation dripping from her rage. Nora advanced anyway. Every step forward made Celeste's attacks recoil harder, siphoned into the lattice, magnified until the chamber was filled with blinding radiance. At the dais, Celeste's form faltered, her power cannibalizing itself. Her face twisted, half fury, half fear. You think you're saving them, Nora? You're just replacing me. No, Nora whispered as she pressed the stabilizer's final seal. I'm ending you. The lattice snapped shut. Omega's fracture collapsed into wholeness, not in Celeste's image, nor Nora's, but something balanced, alive, shared across countless unseen minds. Celeste's scream fractured into silence, her presence ripped apart, her body collapsing like ashen wind. When the light faded, Nora stood alone at the center of the chamber, breath ragged, the stabilizer still glowing faintly in her grasp. The council members stirred, their eyes clearing for the first time in weeks. Adrian and Ira rushed to her side, their faces pale with awe. It's done, Ira whispered. Nora shook her head, staring at the stabilizer. No, it's just beginning. Omega isn't a weapon anymore. It's a network.
Shared. Alive.
It belongs to everyone now. The chamber doors burst open. Beyond them, the streets of the city glowed with the same lattice light, threads weaving between people, binding them not with control, but with resonance. Voices rose outside, not in fear, but in unity. Nora exhaled, her chest heavy with exhaustion, her soul raw with the cost of victory. Celeste was gone. But what she left behind was more dangerous than any throne, a world that could no longer be ruled by silence. And in that new world, Nora Valen, scarred, relentless, unbroken, would no longer fight alone.